right. So what's going on?
It's a hoodie day.
Say again?
It's a hoodie day.
It is a hoodie day. It's cold.
Yeah,
And total coincidence, we're both repping our ETSU hoodies from Steven.
yeah, that's right. It's a good. It's a good material. Feels
It
comfy.
is. It's nice and comfy.
It is super comfy. So that is what I go with on most cool days. It's a cool
Hmm
44 degrees, blue skies, colorful
hmm
trees.
Yeah, it's 50 here, 50 and sunny here.
Yeah,
So yeah, the cool weather has arrived.
I like this. I like this temperature. I much colder in snow. I'm not a fan of, but this fall temperature is nice.
Yeah, I'm a spring and summer person.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like the middle of August when it's super hot, maybe not so much. I mean, the fall. I hated the fall as a kid because it meant going back to school, and I hated
Mm,
school.
yeah.
As an adult, that believe it or not, that still kind of lingers. But yeah, like I mean, I don't mind this weather, but yeah, like the snow, I hate the snow.
Yeah, it's not. It's not unless you're like a hardcore skier, snowboarder, snowmobile. It's just not enjoyable. It's nice
Mhm.
to sit inside and look at it, but if you have to go outside, it's
Shovel that
just not.
shit.
Yeah, it's just not enjoyable.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. And I made one of the most incredible sandwiches last night. That I it may be my new thing that I'm addicted to for a while.
Tell me more.
It's called the chopped cheese. I had never heard of it. So,
I've never heard of it.
okay. So that makes me feel better. So apparently it's a East Harlem cult classic that
Okay.
is sold in like the bodegas in the neighborhoods, and I learned about it from the chef Kenji. Um, who I subscribe to on YouTube, and I've seen him do some cool videos with Adam Savage from Mythbusters. I saw him making it. I'm like, this looks incredible. And I guess for him, it was like a late night coming home from a bar, 2 a.m., stop at the bodega and get a chopped cheese.
Okay.
So, what it is, at least the way he prepared it, and it's just the way that I made it last night, is you take a hoagie roll and you kind of warm it up, how, whatever your method, get it nice and warm. You saute some onions, not necessarily get them all browned and whatnot, just kind of get them a little soft. And then you make a large burger patty. You throw it on your griddle, you let it cook a little bit, you season it with salt and pepper and chicken bouillon. And you kind of let it fry up a bit, and then you start chopping that thing up into pieces. You mix the onions in, and he threw some peppers in as well. So I did some like pepperoncini in it. And you let that kind of all mix together as kind of this chopped up hamburger with the onions and peppers. And then at the very end, you put a couple slices of American cheese on it. You take your hoagie roll, put some mayo on it, put your toppings on it, wrap it up, and good to go. It is incredible.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yes. So I have more stuff, so I'm thinking about making it again for lunch today. It was so good. So I'm sorry, I'm just now finding out this chopped cheese is a thing. So
Yeah. No, that sounds phenomenal.
yeah, quite
And, and
delicious.
and I will say, since I've had to cut out grains, I
Yeah,
do miss a good sandwich, like a good
it's the
hoagie
bread,
one.
man. The
It
hoagie
is.
roll really makes it. You know.
It is. Like I mean, like I've tried to use like gluten free rolls, but they just fall apart.
It's
So you
not the
can't
same.
really stuff
Yeah,
it. And this
yeah.
is coming from a guy who worked 2 years at a deli
Oh,
when I was
did
in
you?
college.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
my
know
uncle
that.
owned like this little neighborhood deli for a few years,
Oh, that's
and so
awesome.
I worked there when I was in college, and like it's like we talk a lot about like the craft, and you
Yeah,
can go anywhere and someone will make you a sandwich, but like kind of working in like the small little neighborhood place, the hole in the wall kind of place, you kind of really learn how to put together something well. And like there
yeah.
is an art to making a sandwich. You just got to
Oh,
slap stuff together.
forget about it. No, it is, and you can tell when you find one of those places you just want to hang on to them because they're just few and far between places that
Yeah,
really know how to make an amazing sandwich.
like the
So
way you slice the meat, the way you cut the meat, the way you layer stuff,
yeah,
it makes or breaks it. And then yeah, it comes down to the roll.
It always comes down to the roll. So that's why I decided to start trying to make my own, because I've had such a hard time finding a good hoagie roll
Mm-hmm.
in Utah. So I'm not there yet, but I'm willing to put in the work until someone actually starts doing some good deli stuff here in Utah. It's the one thing that I really love about the East Coast. Like they do deli right.
Yes, I will agree.
Yeah. So you are spoiled in that aspect.
I know, I know. Like like I see pictures of sandwiches from other places, and I'm just like, no, that's not good.
No,
Come
she's
here, and I'll
not.
show you. I'll show you something good.
And that's the problem, is that you kind of don't want to expose them to it, because it's like, let them live in their ignorance that this is good, because the minute you show them something else, it's like, well, I'm ruined. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this anymore,
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's good to see the good stuff, and the East Coast
Mm-hmm.
does delis good. So yeah, that's my update.
Yeah. It's all part of the nuances, right?
It is.
The little things.
It's the little things that matter, for sure. And I need to come out to Philly, because we talked about this sandwich with was it the broccoli rabe on it? The
Yep.
pork, what's it called?
I
I
forget
don't
the
know,
exact name of
but
it,
you know
but
which one
yeah,
I'm talking about,
I
right?
know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. There's a few different places.
I
And
definitely
like at
need
this
to
point,
try
like
that.
whenever anybody says that, so Adam from London, he
Mm.
and I have been chatting like next spring. Um, he and his girlfriend are supposed to be coming over. They're going to go
Oh,
visit New
yes.
York, and he's going to try to plan to swing by this area.
Very cool.
And I said, yeah, I'll take you around places, and I won't take you to the tourist traps in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Whenever I will freely admit, Pat's and Geno's in Philadelphia, like, yeah, if you want to go do the touristy thing,
If
go
you want
do
the
it.
Instagram photo,
Yeah, if you
go to
want the
Pat's or
real
Geno's.
sandwich, there's a few other places.
Yeah.
We'll go to, and
Yeah.
I could take you to get the really good stuff.
That to me is one of the most amazing things about traveling, is knowing someone, or trusting someone at your destination city to take you off the beaten track, because all of that stuff, it's like, I could just get this at home.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty much just kind of sterilized and cleaned up for the mass consumer. I want the gritty hardcore. I like, take me to the real places. That's where I want to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There was several years ago, Randy and I went to this Indian place that down in Delaware. I
Mm.
got to find like directions to it again because honestly, this is ages ago. He and I went to this hole in the wall Indian place down in Delaware, I believe it was, and it was good. It
Yeah.
was phenomenal Indian food.
Those are the places. Those are the places, man. And just thinking about it, I'm thinking about the last road trip my son and I took. We went to San Diego, and I hit so many like local food joints. It was amazing. But on the way, I stopped in Riverside, at UC Riverside. I went onto the campus, and there is this hole in the wall deli inside one of the like dorm buildings on campus, and I wandered into it and got a sandwich, and it was so incredible. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right, how are we
And
gonna?
I haven't had lunch yet, by the way. So
I
now I'm
haven't.
really,
Yeah, and you're way past lunchtime.
yeah,
So
like for some reason, my Wednesdays have kind of morphed into this thing where like I'll eat lunch like 2:30 in the afternoon.
that's too. I'd
So
be freaking out.
yeah. So yeah, let's get into it. And let's get into I want to start a new series today, a new series of episodes. And I want us to talk about B2B, business to business, versus B2C, business to consumer businesses, with the focus being around online. So whether that's e-commerce, B2B versus B2C, lead gen, B2B versus B2C, whatever it is, like online.
Yeah,
Um, and then also start to focus more on the digital analytics piece. So for today, what I'd like us to do is look at B2B versus B2C from the 30,000 foot view. And then the coming episodes, we'll dive into some more of the specifics of it. So like I'm going to throw out a rhetorical question to get us started. But like online activity, online commerce is commerce, right? Regardless of who the customer is, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Or,
Yeah.
or are there? What are some of the nuances? Maybe rephrase it this way: like,
Mm.
if we look at B2B versus B2C, like all websites should function the same, right? Or, are there nuances a business needs to take into account if they're, looking to have maybe divisions or units that, target one of those two?
For sure, right? And I think that the buyer profile is completely different. And I don't, stop me if I start getting too deep in the weeds for topics that you have planned for future episodes that when we drill down into the details. But one of the major challenges that B2B has, specifically where you have companies that have both presence, both a B2C and a B2B component to their business, the B2B often gets treated as the what's the term, the redheaded stepchild.
Correct.
They're kind of ignored and kind of put in the corner, and then they get this lens of, well, here's what your B2C friends did, so just do what they did. But there's so much more nuance to how B2B operates, that those companies that try to overlay that kind of framework from the B2C side are putting themselves in an incredibly difficult spot because it is fundamentally different.
Mhm. What are some of those things that make a B2B customer different from a B2C customer? What are some of the obvious things people realize, but then where I want to then take this is what are some of the smaller details, the finer details that people miss when it comes to trying to court and work with a B2B customer?
I mean, just right on the surface, the buyer profile is completely different. For as a B2C, I'm purchasing for me, my specific needs. For B2B, I'm purchasing as a proxy agent for the business that I represent, and I may not even care about the stuff that I'm buying. So on B2C, where we're driven a lot by emotion and by what our friends are saying. B2B, especially in kind of a B2B retail setting, it's quite different from that, right? It's a very operational kind of tactical process that is uh, really a different feel from B2C. The biggest challenges, again, looking specifically at more B2B retail type of environments, is your purchase process is often completely different, right? So I mean, I can go to the store, I can go to staples.com and slap down my credit card and buy, whatever, some paper for my printer. As a B2B buyer, it's usually not that easy. So oftentimes you're having to handle things like purchase orders and billing and things that are just completely different that you would never have to think about from a consumer purchase funnel perspective.
Mhm. And speaking of the conversion funnel, one of the things I think people often miss is the the time, like
Yeah,
the actual time to conversion
that's right.
is often significantly different.
Almost
Where
always
yeah,
longer, much
much
longer.
longer.
Yeah.
Like I worked for a company for about a year and a half early in my career as a small business rep, working out of a retail store, major technology manufacturer, because they wanted to try to build up like small business, a small business sales unit, but like at kind of crossing between the retail side of the business and the direct side of the business. So direct business sales didn't have the time of day for your local shop that was looking to buy two or three computers. They were dealing in hundreds.
Yeah.
Um, but still, and the biggest problem I had in this role was working with, because my management reported up through the consumer retail, was working with them and helping them understand that my clients would take weeks to convert. It
Yeah.
would
And that's probably
weeks.
short.
And
Right.
that's on the shorter side. It wasn't like, someone who walked in today and said, "Hey, yeah, I run a small graphics design firm and I'm hiring 2 new employees in the future. What does it look like for me to be able to do this?" Or a phone call came in, or whatever, a lead came in for it. Like, you're talking about, like, multiple conversations. You're looking at potentially a couple weeks to close this deal. It wasn't something like pick up the phone and say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we'll get that ordered today." And, like, that lead time, that lead to conversion time is often much longer, and it's one of those nuances that people often miss when comparing B2C to B2B.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things, especially where you have a component where you can buy online in B2B, is you really start to blend business types together in that you have a very strong lead gen component that is really the top end of the funnel. And sure, you have that on traditional e-commerce sites. You sign up for our newsletter or sign up to get, alerted of our next deals. You have that, but in a B2B setting, it's an integral part of the purchase process. And to view it otherwise, you're missing the full story. So again, trying to overlay what's done in B2C on B2B and saying, oh, just look when they view a product and add it to their cart and they check out. No, you're missing a massive part of the story. And oftentimes this is because, to your point, it's large volumes. It's often larger per unit prices. And so these are not necessarily decisions that are made on a whim, saying, oh, that's a $5 thing from Amazon. Yeah, just buy now. That's not how it happens. So there's a lot of education that has to happen. There's a lot of nurturing that relationship before the buy happens. And a lot of times, B2B doesn't take that full journey into view, especially from an analytics perspective, because again, they've kind of taken the model of B2C and saying, well, we'll just kind of track our funnel as they track it. And it's a huge miss. And it introduces a ton of challenges. We've been talking a lot about challenges with third-party cookies going away and cookie lifetime shortening and deletion and blocking. And so, how do we do attribution? If you think it's hard from an ad perspective to do it, think about an incredibly long sales cycle, how you piece that whole story together. It's incredibly difficult. I once advised a company that this company offered the highest online store ticket prices that I've ever worked with. They sold DNA sequencers, and you could buy these sequencers and the products for them online through their website. And the average sales cycle was something like 9 months. I mean, these were often $1 million plus machines that were being purchased in a checkout funnel online. But the bulk of the work was in education and research and figuring out, oh, do I have the right thing, and then filling out. There was just so much that goes into that. Trying to treat that like a consumer purchase is just a losing battle.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point there, which I think is often missed when we see businesses just slap together a a a site, again, whether it's lead gen or e-commerce, that targets B2B customers. Um, it's the nurturing of the relationship.
Hmm.
Like, those folks, whether it's the small 3 to 4 person graphic design shop, or the 200 person medium sized business that has 3 offices in a tri-state area, they want a relationship.
Yeah.
They want someone that they can call to confirm that what they're looking to get will fit their team's needs. They want to see what options they have. They want to know bulk licensing
That's
when it
right.
comes to software. They want to know those things, so they want to talk to someone and build that relationship, and not just go on and click add to cart.
Yeah, and we worked on a problem like this for one of our clients a couple of years ago. That has since been acquired by Adobe, where we spent a lot of time thinking through that. And we may get to this in a future episode where we talk about the importance of expanding the view of your data. I mean, it's always a good thing, but especially in these scenarios, you can't just rely on your digital analytics platform to tell you this story, because to your point, there's a lot of self-directed research and knowledge gathering that, as the potential customer, I'm going to be doing on your website, but I'm also going to be reaching out to your team. Maybe I fill out a form to get more information. Maybe your team follows up with me. Maybe we have some discovery sessions. So all that data is held somewhere else. How do we start to piece that whole story together? Because that's really telling me the story of your consumers. And again, I think it's one of the bigger challenges that we see B2B companies facing, is that they take a much too digital centric view of the data, and all they're really getting is the very, very, very last moment of conversion in their purview. There's so much that happens upstream, and there's so much that happens in between the gaps that don't happen on the website that we lose visibility to. And it makes
Mm-hmm.
things incredibly difficult to piece together. The other thing that I would lay on top of that, and again, stop me if we're getting too much in the weeds, one of the challenges that we face with every one of our B2B clients is they all want to do A/B testing and personalization. And we run into a attack dog again. I know you guys love having her show up in the episodes.
Well, we know when you're getting a delivery.
I know, which is every day. One of the major challenges from that aspect is that, and from an analysis standpoint as well, is that it's again so much different from the consumer side, because while it's almost the inverse relationship, while the volumes may be huge and the sticker prices are huge, the actual number of customers is quite small. Where on retail, you may be doing, your cart size is incredibly small, but you have a huge number of customers. So you have a big data set of lots of different interactions and behavior points. In B2B, you don't have that usually. You have very small data sets, which makes analysis a very real challenge and makes A/B testing incredibly difficult to pull off.
Interesting. I did not think about that one. Because you're right. You brought up two really good things there. Is number of customers is different,
Yeah.
and then cart size, purchase sizes are different. Let's come back to that in a second. But talk to me more about the A/B testing, because that is definitely something I did not think of when putting this together.
Yeah, I mean, A/B testing it needs volume. We're trying to take a sample size and um, come up with a result that we can ascribe to the greater population. And the more samples you take, the better likelihood, or the more trust that you have in the results, that it applies to the general population. When you have very small sample sizes, it's very difficult to get any kind of statistically sound results. Which makes A/B testing in a B2B environment inherently difficult, simply because of the small sample size that you have. And then when you compound that with B2B organizations that are often risk adverse, in that they don't like taking big risks on their website, because again, we're not talking about, okay, you're buying a $10 trinket. We're talking about you're buying a $10,000 unit, and you're probably buying 100 of those, and so they're very, very cautious about making changes on their website. But when you have a small sample size and you make very minuscule changes, I'm going to change this button from blue to cornflower blue, you're not going to impact enough change to help drive any kind of meaningful results. And so when we work with B2B businesses, it's really less about coming up with really interesting test ideas or helping them select a testing platform. A lot of the work we do is cultural, and helping them get comfortable with making more broad scale, large changes, because they're in a position, because of their small sample sizes, where unless they're willing to make big changes on their site, it's almost a waste of time for them to be doing A/B testing. You're on mute.
Yeah. Again, it's quite obvious when you say it. But it's one of those things that I think people don't think of until they either try it or someone points it out. Yeah, because
Yeah.
with the volume being so different.
And I think it's part of a bigger problem where we try to we're gonna have a guest. What are we learning in school today? Okay.
I like the shoulder shrug.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
Something I was told to print it.
I don't know. I got it printed out, so I'm gonna go learn that. I think it's a bigger problem in general where we try to make things. We try to be so efficient in everything that we come up with these models or playbooks that we want to use to describe everything. And in fact, it was frustrating at the time, but I get a chuckle out of it. We were working with, speaking of big ticket items, we were working with a solar manufacturer many years ago, and they hired a new director of analytics, and the director of analytics came in and said, all right, so here's my game plan on how we're going to do things, and I'm going to use my experience running analytics for I think it was a financial company, or a lead, I can't remember, like a completely different world, and this is how we're going to do it. Maybe it was retail, and then this is how we're going to run analytics here. I'm like, what? I mean, yeah, sure. Let's take what we learn across verticals. I think verticals can inform other types of verticals, and it can be very useful. But to take the blueprint of, well, this is what I did at my last job and apply it to this job, it's lazy at best. At worst, I mean, you're going to really mislead your teams and your companies, and this is again a big problem we see in B2B because it is such a smaller niche. Most people, when you look at their career arc, don't really have the opportunity to work in B2B. A lot of it is consumer facing, and so they'll take their background in a B2B B2C company, they'll get hired on into a B2B role, and they'll say, well, this is what I did at my last job, so I'm going to do it here. And it just doesn't work. We need to be much more open to understanding the nuances of the roles that we're in and the companies that we work in, and especially where we're talking B2B versus B2C. And again, absolutely, there's things that each can learn from the other, but try to replicate what one does exactly in the other. It's a losing strategy that unfortunately we see a lot of people do, whether it's just because they don't know any better or they're trying to be efficient. I don't know what it is, but it's a major challenge for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that also just leads into what we've talked about before. This, as people kind of move from company to company, it's the let's tear down and restart. But that's a whole other
Oh man,
conversation.
don't get me started on that one.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to get you
Yeah.
started on that one. So one question as we start to wrap up today, and we'll start to get into the details of things next week. Um, you mentioned earlier, a lot, B2B, there's big ticket items there.
Hmm.
Um, why then is the B2B side of things, with a company often treated as the redheaded stepchild of the business and secondary to the consumer side?
Man, if I had an answer to that, I think we could solve so many problems because I have no idea. And I'm left scratching my head when I see it. And we've over my career I've had the opportunity to work with a lot, probably more than 10 businesses that have been that both have a B2C and a B2B arm. And in every one of those cases, without question, the B2B side of the business drove more revenue for the company. But it's the B2C side that gets all of the attention, all of the budget. It's sexier. It has more eyeballs. Like, well, there's way more consumers that are looking at the B2C side, and I don't know why that is. I would think as informed, smart executives that are overseeing the health of the entire company, it would be very clear for me to look and see my B2B unit is driving twice the revenue as my B2C unit. That seems logical to me. but there's something that's breaking down, because in every one of these cases, the B2B side made more money than the B2C side, yet that they were constantly underfunded. They constantly were kind of living off the scraps of the B2C side. It's like, oh, they purchased these tools, you guys figure out how to use them too. And I don't have an answer. I wish I had an answer to it, because I've seen it time and time again, and it just is a mystery to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen the same thing too. And it always, it's been one of those curiosities.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the B2B should be treated better. It's like, give it its proper respect though.
I mean, give them a budget to do some of these things. And again, it's a challenge that we have with our B2B clients, is that they want to do all the things they're seeing their B2C colleagues doing, but they never have the same level of budget and support from the company to be able to do those things. It seems like such a wasted opportunity, and maybe I'm missing something that's just right there, but it's just, they're often asked to operate on a shoestring budget and just make it work. And they're kind of, you guys go sit in the back office or the basement, don't, just do your thing and churn out your work, and we'll focus on B2C. And maybe it comes down to this whole concept of the buyer persona, right? Like B2B, it's less emotional, it's more tactical and operational. We've had a relationship with these companies for 50 years. They always buy this from us. Just let it run. B2C is where we need to be focused on winning new customers, because it's so transient and it's turning over. So that's where the budget's going to go. I don't know. Maybe someone that has seen both of those worlds from an executive standpoint can follow up with this, or may want to be a guest on a future podcast, because I honestly don't have an answer for it.
One last question as we wrap up. Thinking back to all of those situations where you've advised businesses that have that B2B arm, as you think back, what's like the one common thing that you've advised all or many of them to do?
So I guess it's two things. One, fight for budget, because it's hard for them to do the things they want to do without budget. We're talking, if we think we're dealing with small teams on a B2C side, they're even smaller on a B2B side. So, where we may have an analyst and an implementer and a testing strategist and a designer and all this on the B2C side, oftentimes on the B2B side, you have one person that has to wear all of those hats. And so, that's my biggest piece of advice, but that's difficult to do. Where we can have an impact is empathize with the fact that they have to wear all those hats, and help teach them that don't try to bite it off all at once. It's impossible for you to do all these things, because you're talking about doing the job of 5 or 6 people. So let's figure out how to put a framework in place where we can break these things down into smaller chunks, and don't try to replicate what your B2C colleagues are doing, because they have more budget and more people power than you have to do it. So let's reset our expectations and define a path for us as a B2B unit, and not compare to what the B2C unit does. It's a subtle shift, but it's one that creates a much better outcome, in my experience, in realigning expectations of what actually can get done.
Cool. Well, this is going to be a little bit on the shorter side, but that is intentional, because I kind of want to use this as an intro to the topic. So hopefully kind of pique some folks' interest on the next couple weeks of really diving in deep into this, and how how B2B versus B2C works, from a digital analyst perspective, digital analytics implementation perspective, and whatnot. So
Yeah.
as we wrap up, any other final words?
No, and I'm excited to kind of jump into those details, because I think there's a lot of, again, the key word in this episode seems to be nuance to how digital analytics can be deployed more successfully, in a more valuable way, in a B2B environment. And super excited to kind of share some of our experience and recommendations from that perspective.
Cool. Good stuff then. So in that case, we'll go ahead and wrap up for now, and talk to everybody later.
See ya.
See ya. Thank you.